At a skinny 6'1" and weighing 165 pounds, our next inductee broke the mold of what a typical AA pro racer was at the time. What he may have lacked in strength and size, he made up for with his unmatched set of skills and an unequaled amount of desire to have fun on his bike. Brian Foster was the youngest of three brothers, and thanks to a motorcycle enthusiastic father, they were raised on mini-cycles at a young age. Like so many younger brothers in BMX, BF worked hard to keep up with his older brother Alan, who was no slacker himself. Once they discovered BMX racing in their home state of Maryland, it was game on. Riding at their run-down, beat-up skate park each day after school is where the younger Foster brother dialed in his jumping skills. And soon, the magazines and factory teams would take notice. Once he came from out of nowhere to win 16X at the 1988 ABA Grands, everyone knew his name. Eventually, the Foster brothers would work their way up the pro ranks. While Alan made the move to California, Brian opted to chase the American BMXer dream in Kingsport, Tennessee, to go to work for his sponsor, Cyclecraft Bikes, painting frames in crazy wild custom colors and splatter designs. It was a Cyclecraft trademark, which was pretty impressive, considering that Brian Foster is colorblind. At the peak of Brian's pro racing career, he was in the hunt for the 1995 ABA #1 pro title. Let's just say that it was an outcome that is still talked about today. Deservingly so, he was voted Golden Crank Pro of the Year in 1995 by the fans. There were still plenty of years of racing and riding ahead of him, which was ensured by the Foster brothers hooking up a major sponsorship with Airwalk Shoes and Schwinn Bicycles. Schwinn would even put out the Blue Falcon signature frame. But his focus was not just on racing. The Blue Falcon was one of only a handful of racers who could make a AA main and then go compete in the King of Dirt contest across the parking lot and win it. His jumping skills set the benchmark for all as he won the 1996 and 1997 King of Dirt series. Then came an X Games gold medal in 1998. Tallying up the numbers of Brian's racing career, he made 107 ABA Pro mains, winning 14 of those and standing on the podium 49 times. But perhaps his biggest contribution to the sport of BMX was changing the perception of what a BMX pro was. He proved that the skinny dudes with mad skills who trained at the trails could hang with and even beat the big hulking muscleheads who trained in the gym. That was only chapter 1 in the BMX life of Brian Foster. Following his retirement from racing, he'd go on to become one of the most influential, looked-up-to riders in the freestyle realm, taking his smoothness and flawless flowing style to the trails and streets of America, riding for S&M and Fit well into his 40s. The Blue Falcon has achieved godlike status amongst today's hardcore trail riders. So please join us in celebration of this year's Racer inductee into the BMX Hall of Fame, the Blue Falcon, Brian Foster.
I got you, Debbie. All right, so, woo. How y'all doing? Oh, hey. Work it out. All right, so just a heads up. I might cry. I might curse. I prepared this speech this morning about as much time as I prepared for the 95 Grands. And we know how that worked out. So, I'd like to thank USA BMX for this pretty big honor. When Shannon called, I was writing a paper and I was super busy. And he told me, I was like, all right, cool, thanks. And so I was, it's a huge honor and I didn't want that to like come across as like not being a big deal. So how the hell did I get here? Like, I'm gonna just, I like telling stories. So we're just gonna go with some. I didn't mean to, I didn't have goals. I didn't want to be like, the best this or the fastest that. I just liked riding my bike. I just wanted to have fun, and that's what I did. And I ended up riding so much that I got good at it. So But being good isn't good enough in BMX because there's so many good people. So I was fortunate enough I call it the perfect storm of the ingredients that you need, like the recipe for success. So it starts with family. And my dad, you guys aren't even gonna believe this one. So he rode motorcycles, and we were put on motorcycles when we were little kids. So he flies out yesterday, and him and Alan go for a mountain bike ride, and he's in his 70s. He flips over the bars, breaks a couple ribs, had surgery this morning, and he's in the hospital in Mission Viejo. So everyone just send out some positive vibes to my dad. But I mean, seriously, that's how I got here, because like, this is the guy that I'm like looking up to. So that was pretty cool. And then there was my mom. She was in charge of the rules. And the rules weren't that hard. Passing grades and don't get arrested. And I can do that. I was 13, I broke my collarbone on a Sunday. And Alan drove me home. I was 13. I was in a sleeping bag in the bed of a pickup truck with a broken collarbone on a Sunday. And then Monday morning, my mom wakes me up. It's time to go to school. I'm like, no, this hurts. If BMX is going to stop you from going to school, then maybe you shouldn't ride. And I'm just like, all right, heading to school. So I have two brothers. Alan's pretty mild-mannered, right? Like, he's a pretty chilled out guy. It's not the case. He's an absolute maniac. Like, when I was 8 years old and he was 10, the neighborhood kids, we had a jumping contest, and jumping contests then were for distance, So it was off a pile of mulch, and this kid jumped pretty far, and we had these really crappy bikes. And so Alan grabs this other kid's bike who was like really nice, and he goes up the hill, and he just comes cruising down, goes way past, lands, smashes his face on the crossbar, and he's like missing teeth. And those teeth cost you, that was like trouble for a long time. So it's like another, like, these are my role models. So it's pretty awesome. Most of you don't know Ken. He's the oldest brother. He's like football, like baseball, sports guy, but he kind of gave me my toughness. And he would call me inappropriate terms. Like if I was like crying too much or whining about something. So he definitely needs a little recognition. And my relatives, we had something, and to this day, we still have something called Fakesgiving. Because me and Alan were always in Oklahoma on Thanksgiving. So we would have Fakesgiving the first weekend in December. And Fakesgiving still lives on. I haven't been in a couple of years because I've been in school, but I hope to be back. So besides family, I had a solid crew behind me. Like, there was always guys that wanted to ride, and all I wanted to do was ride. In the Maryland days, it was just, I would go out on a Friday. The parents were like, there was no cell phones. I would leave on Friday after school and come home Sunday at like 5. And we would spend the night wherever and just ride all weekend long. As I got older, Jen's from Long Island. So Jen's my wife. And I got to ride with those Long Island guys, and they had the same mindset as me. They just wanted to ride. And then moved out here, the POW house, same thing, live in a house with 10 guys, and they all just want to ride and have fun. So that's what I just kept doing. Sheep Hills, all the foreigners that came out, like Levesque and Thomas and Jamie Staff, they would be doing sprints in the parking lot. And occasionally I'd try to go out there with them. And after a few, I'd be vomiting on the side. And I'm just kind of like, this isn't fun for me. So I would just go to the trails and just try to do that. And nowadays it's kind of like I'm just in the woods in Pennsylvania whenever I get a chance, and I'm just hanging out with normal dudes, like 9-to-5ers, and they just love it. And most of it, I mean, it's a pretty old crew. So moving on. I always had except like the guys I was riding with, but I always had dudes looking after me. Like every team I rode for wasn't about like, they were almost always like friends, and just, I would like hop on board with whatever they were doing. The wheel power days, like Debbie was saying, you just get in a van, pile up, and head to the next spot. Cyclecraft, the Martinos just took me in for like 3 years. I lived in their house rent free, and just, I didn't have a plan. They would give me $10 in gas money because I drove a Toyota Tercel, and I'd go to the race, and I'd make like $100, and it was just like, now we're rolling. And so, speaking of money, Airwalk comes along, and Kim Boyle's like, how much do you need? Like, what do you need? And I'm like, well, I live with 10 guys, rent's $100 a month. Car payment's $100 a month, maybe $200 a month for like other stuff. So I need $400 a month. And he came with me with 500. So times were good. And then moving on, like the Schwinn days, I'm going off script now, but Schwinn was like a big dumb company. But John Paul like created this illusion that it was like a really like cool thing, and like the guys that it was the same deal. Like we all just loved riding, and we had a good time. I better go back on script now. And to this day, like Fit and Merit, they're still supporting me. I literally, like, for the last like 8 years, they've been paying me to go to school, which is, I mean, those guys deserve a huge pat on the back. So most importantly, you need like someone by your side. Jennifer, you're my rock. You're my kickstand, if that's weird to say. She's been just side by side every step. Like the wheel power days, we met in '89. So wheel power days, cyclecraft days. Then she moves out to California, and she's just been there every step of the day. And it's not pretty. Like so many injuries. As I was writing this, I said I used to travel like 36 weekends a year. She was like, no, 42. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a lot. And nowadays, she was my role model for school. When I was still riding, she went back to school. She did her thing, and she was like a ridiculous student and kind of showed me what that looks like. And I didn't know what was to come, but I had a student role model. And so just thank you. All right. So that's the recipe I used. You know, family, you got a crew, you got people behind you, and you got someone by your side. And I don't know, like here I am, and it's a crazy story. Like even when I hear my story, I'm like, that doesn't seem possible. So I just keep wanting to move forward. I was racing, and it came to the point where people started clipping in, and they started training really hard and getting really strong, and I couldn't really hang with them. So I moved on, and then I did dirt jumping for a while, and that worked out for a while. And then they started doing like harder tricks, and I was just like, now I'm in my 30s. I'm just like, wow, I can't really hang with this anymore. So then you go just ride the trails in concrete, and you're just chilling, and that's kind of like full circle. That's like where it started. Like you're just riding for fun, but you get to film and make a little video, and that's enough to get a paycheck, which is pretty awesome. So with all that support, Pro BMX is pretty easy. But you know what's hard? What's hard is not being a pro BMXer. I was in my mid-30s, high school education, nothing on my resume but a sweet one-handed table 3. Thank you. Super delusional about how the real world works. Like, people woke up at 7, went to work at 9, and then worked at 5 every day. And it's just, I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. So me and Jen, like this was like one of the harder times for us because like the writing's on the wall, like the checks are gonna stop coming, and I gotta figure something out. And she's like, I don't care what you do, but you just can't do nothing. I'm like, all right. You need to be a productive adult. That was an actual quote. So she we argued a lot, and I was looking for the easy way out. Like, we talked about school, and I was like, that's a terrible idea. And so she's like, well, the first step is just see how it goes. So I went and I took 2 classes at the community college. It was English and a remedial biology. My first lab partner was 14. She was like a high school student, or she was a high school student trying to get credits. And I was like 38. So I come home after that semester and I'm like, I got an A and I got an A minus. And she's like, we don't get A minuses. I was like, oh, all right. So and then I just started plugging away, and semester after semester. At one point during my full-time school, Jen was working 2 full-time jobs, like work the 8 to 5 and then go teach at a college at night. And I was so busy, like when I hear about it now, I'm like, it kind of blows my mind that she was putting in that much work so I could like improve, I guess. No, we're getting there. We're So I've been in school for 8 years now. Ugh, it's insane. I'm 6 months away to be a doctorate in physical therapy. It's so crazy. So when I was writing this morning, I kind of realized she's a psychologist, and she fully Jedi mind tricked me into this whole thing. So I've already said it, but I just wouldn't be there without you. So I'm going to wrap this up. BMX is the same for me now as it was when I was a kid. It's fun. It's my therapy. It's my exercise. It's like my identity. And it's just like, it's so good to go like full circle. There's too many people to thank in such a short time. I just wanted to say, if we ever cross paths at any point, positively, negatively, or otherwise, I would like to thank you for being part of my journey because it got me here. Thanks to USA BMX and BMX in general for letting me be a part of it. Have fun, stay safe, and the best quote John Paul ever gave me, keep the rubber side down and injuries to a minimum. Thank you so much.